Hello, hello, hello. Happy Thursday and welcome to tonight's stream. So, this time we're looking at Lesson 6, Conversation 4, and we have a few different ideas that we're covering in these lessons, right? We learned about the word ever in the phrase then ever and related things to that. And then we learned different ways to ask about time. Ever is about the history in history or maybe sometime in the future. And then we learned about asking how much time does something take. So we learned about how long and how much time and stuff like that. And then connected to more words and phrases about time, we talked about the words recently and lately. And maybe you've studied these things before, but you weren't really sure, how do I decide when do I use recently, when do I use lately? And then we finished up with our dialogue about house hunting, looking for a new apartment. And you're feeling kind of fun, so you really like the apartment, and you say, I'm going to take it, I'm going to decorate it, make it perfect for me. And Bob says, hey, hold your horses, slow down a little bit. You need to think about this before you jump in. And you say, no way, I'm going to decorate it and make it amazing. And so you decide to decorate your apartment with some wild, amazing stuff. Ping pong table, a basketball court, a bowling alley, and the Mona Lisa. Ooh. Okay. So let's get started and jump into our homework, okay? So our first lesson is Lesson 6, Conversation 4, Part 2, where we're talking about the word ever. Ever meaning in history or at any time, right? So our first sentence is, 这是我职业中遇到的最大危机. Oh no, 代机断掉. Oh no. So you might say, this is the biggest crisis I've ever faced in my career. Oh, it's terrible. You could also say, this is the biggest crisis in my career ever. Okay? So the first sentence, I think, is a little bit smoother. But you can put the word ever at the end of the sentence if you want to. So I would say the best way to say it is, this is the biggest crisis I've ever faced in my career. So we can look at the word order. So this is, we're talking about this situation. This is the biggest crisis. So saying that this situation is the biggest crisis, and then we describe that crisis. The biggest crisis I've ever faced. I've ever faced is present perfect tense, meaning in my life, in my experience, okay? And we use ever to emphasize that it's your whole life, the first time, okay? The biggest crisis I've ever faced in my career. So compared to the rest of your life, this is the biggest, okay? One thing that my father used to say when he was working, my dad's retired now, but in his job, they used to have big crises, but they would call it a critical situation. So you can call it a crisis, but then in some business places, in some business meetings, they might call it a critical situation, or a crit sit is what they used to say, okay? So our sentence here, this is the biggest crisis I've ever faced in my career. Now, usually with the word crisis, you face a crisis. Face is kind of like 面对 in Chinese. So with a crisis, it's a problem, and we face that crisis, okay? You have to deal with it, so we face it, okay? A lot of you use the word have. This is the biggest crisis I've ever had in my career. That's okay, but usually we use the word face a crisis because having a crisis is like you have a big problem. But if you face a crisis, it's a big problem, but you're trying to fix it. You're not just giving up and saying, oh, it's it's a disaster. You're facing a crisis, meaning you're trying to fix it, trying to deal with it, okay? So have a crisis and face a crisis are both okay, but we would often say face a crisis because we want to make it better, okay? And then, this is the biggest crisis I've ever faced in my career. So I would use the word career here. I saw a few people use something like business life or something like that. But generally for your life at work, you can just say your career, okay? And then I saw a few people say biggest crisis than ever. Now, using the word then is when we compare two things. So that doesn't really work that well. Biggest crisis than ever, it doesn't really work because you're matching biggest. Biggest would mean more than 3 or something. And then ever is comparing two things. So if you want to use than ever, you would say this crisis is bigger than ever. So you can think of ever being what you're comparing to. Bigger than ever. So don't say biggest than ever, because you can't use biggest to compare to one other thing, okay? Okay, we are on the first sentence. This is the biggest crisis in my career ever. That would be okay too. Or you could also say, if you want to simplify it, you could say, this is the biggest crisis ever. But that would mean in all of history. But you can say that if you want to exaggerate and you're talking about your own life. Oh my gosh, this is the biggest crisis ever. Oh, okay. Now, let's see. Next up is 我知道你现在生我的气 Oh no. 但你之后有可能原谅我吗 Oh, please, please, I don't know. So, I would say this as, I know you're angry at me now, but will you ever forgive me? Please, I hope so. So, I know you're angry at me now, but will you ever forgive me? So, you could say angry. You can also say mad. In American English, mad means angry. But if you use the word mad in British English, mad means crazy in England. So Americans say mad to mean angry. British people use mad to mean crazy. Are you mad? And in American English, it would be, are you mad? Like, are you angry at me? Okay, so I know you're angry at me now, but will you ever forgive me? So the first part, I think everyone got pretty well. I know you're angry at me now, or something very close to that, right? Now, the second part, I said, but will you ever forgive me? Now, when you're asking a question, it's okay to use will for the question. Will you do this? I don't know if it's going to happen, and I'm asking, will it happen in the future? And then you could say, will you forgive me? And that sounds like maybe it'll happen soon. But if we add the word ever, that means I don't know. Add the word ever to mean like at any time, maybe someday, somewhere far in the future. Will you ever forgive me? Okay? So I don't know, but maybe someday in the future, after 10 years or 20 years, you'll go, okay, you're fine. So now, if you don't want to use the word ever, you can change this around. You could say, like a few of you said, is there any chance that you'll forgive me? That's fine too. Is there any chance that you'll forgive me? But we didn't use the word ever, but that's okay too. You could also say, is it possible that you will forgive me someday? Or is it possible that you will ever forgive me? So you can add the phrase, is there a chance or is it possible? That's fine. But you don't have to, right? Having the question with will you, it's still asking, is it possible? Will you ever forgive me? The ever kind of has the feeling of, is it possible inside of it? Because it's someday in the future. I have no idea when. Now, a few of you added the word after that or later or something like that. But in English, we don't need that because the word ever includes someday in the future. We don't need to include after that. So a few people said, will you ever forgive me after that? Or will you ever forgive me later? Now you don't need that. It's extra because will you ever is talking about the future. We don't need more words to tell you that it's the future. Okay? So let's keep on moving. The third sentence is 我几乎不吃薯条因为太肥了. So maybe you're trying to be a little more healthy. You're not saying that you are fat. You're saying that the food makes you fat, right? So in English, I would write this as, I hardly ever eat French fries because they're too fattening. Okay, catch that last word. I don't think anyone caught this word. That's okay. The word is fattening. Fattening. So fattening. But if you practice your T sounds, T, vowel, N sometimes will disappear. Fattening. Okay? So the T turns into a stop. They're too fattening. Okay? Fattening means something that makes you fat. So if we're talking about food, you can say, oh, this food is very fattening. Okay? Or drinking soda is kind of fattening, right? It makes you fat. It's not healthy. Okay. So the first part, I hardly ever eat French fries. This is another way to say rarely. I rarely eat French fries. You've probably learned rarely before, but we don't say rarely very often. It's more common to say something like hardly ever. You could also say barely ever. You could also say almost never. I almost never eat French fries. But be careful, it's hardly ever, barely ever, almost never with the N. I saw a couple people write almost ever. Now that doesn't work. We don't do almost ever. It's almost never. So almost never because you're very close to zero. Okay? Never means zero. Almost never is close to zero. Okay? So I hardly ever eat French fries, meaning you do it very rarely, not often at all. Okay? And then French fries, you can write it with a lowercase f or with a big F. Both are okay. So French fries or capital F French fries. But French fries is a very common word now. You don't need that capital F. Okay? I also saw someone write, I hardly ever eat fried chicken because it's too fattening. Fried chicken, yes, that's also not good for you, but just be careful of the words you're using, okay? Hello, Jella. Welcome. So, next up, so we said French fries doesn't need a big F. And then the second part, because they're too fattening. Fattening sounds like fattening, okay? So there were a few different ways that people wrote this, but there are two that you need to be careful about. A couple people said that it's too fat, or they are too fat. Now, the word fat, F-A-T, describes someone who is overweight. So if you say a French fry is fat, that means you thought the French fry would be thin, but it's actually a fat French fry. So saying the French fries, they are too fat means they are wide French fries, maybe monster French fries, okay? There are some French fries like that. I think they're Texas thick cut French fries or something like that. Okay, but don't use too fat to talk about food that makes you fat. Fat means something that's actually wide. Maybe a person, or, oh, my cat is too fat, or something like that, okay? And then a better word to use would be they're too fattening. And remember, it should be they are, because French fries are more than one. They are too fattening. Now, fattening means it makes you fat. You could use other words to get the similar idea. So I saw people use oily, and I saw people use greasy. Those are good, but that's focusing on that they have lots of oil. And well, yeah, they're similar ideas. Foods that are oily are often fattening, but it's not always exactly the same. Like I might say, eating white bread is quite fattening. So plain white bread is kind of fattening, but is that oily and greasy? No, it's a little bit different. For French fries, you could use either one, but the meaning is slightly different, okay? Okay, I also saw I hardly ever eat French fries because of calories. Okay, that's okay, because of calories, but you're not explaining exactly why you're not eating French fries. You could say, I hardly ever eat French fries because they have too many calories, okay? By focusing on too many, you can make it a little more clear what you mean, okay? Or you could say, because I'm watching my calorie intake, or like how many calories I eat, okay? So that's okay too. Just make sure you're clear what you're trying to get across, okay? Next up is Bob 有在跟女生约会吗？我从来没有看过他跟女生说话。Oh, yeah, maybe Bob's a little bit awkward and it's like, does he go on dates? He said he met a girl at the bookstore, but I'm not sure I believe him. So in English, I would say this as, does Bob ever go out with girls? I've never seen him speak with a girl. Okay. So here we're talking about a habit, right? So if it's a habit, we want to use the present simple tense. Does Bob ever go? So it's talking about a habit, and does he ever do this? Okay? A general thing. So present simple for general stuff. Does Bob ever go out with girls? Okay? So if I'm talking about in general, and then like at any time, you can write it that way. If you want to talk about in the past, like does he have this experience, you can write it a different way. You could say, has Bob ever gone out with a girl? Okay? Like, I don't know if he's ever gone on a date in his life. Does he even have that experience? So has Bob ever gone out on a date with a girl? Or something like that, okay? Now be careful, if you use has, you need to use the word gone. Like, has Bob gone on a date? Okay? Because I saw a few people write, has Bob went? So be careful, has, and then the past participle, which can have an N sound. Has Bob gone out with girls? Okay? I also saw something like, is Bob dating with a girl? Or is Bob ever seeing anyone? Now, if you use is, that means right now. Like, you would use is in a question if you're asking about, is he seeing someone right now? Is he dating someone right now? Okay? So for this question, it's better if you use does Bob ever go or has Bob ever gone on a date? Okay? Either talking about in general or in the past, right? If we're talking about right now, it's a little bit different, okay? So I use, does Bob ever go out with girls? You could also say, does Bob ever go on dates with girls? Something like that. And remember, we say go on dates. A date is usually a thing. You could say, does Bob ever date girls? But I would say it's better to say go on dates. And then remember, if you use date as a verb, does Bob ever date girls? You don't need to put the word with in there. So you can say, does Bob ever date girls? But you don't need to say, does Bob date with girls? So date with someone sounds a little bit awkward. You don't need the word with, okay? And then the second sentence, I've never seen him speak with a girl. So in my life, I don't have that experience. So I've never seen him speak with a girl. So we use present perfect. I have never seen to talk about my experience. And then never means I never saw it. Not even one time. 0 time. Okay? And then again, if we have in the past participle, you have to be careful what form. I have never seen. So I saw a few people write, I have never saw, but be careful, it should be have never seen. Even if we split them up, we have to have them match, okay? I also saw a few people say, I never saw him talk to girls. That would be okay, but it's better to use present perfect because we're talking about your experience. In my life, I've never seen him, okay? And then the ending is speak with a girl. So I use speak with, and then you could also say speak to. You could say talk to, okay? You could also use talking with a girl. So I've never seen him talking to a girl. That would be okay too, meaning you've never seen that action. So the ing is like you've never seen that situation. That would be okay too. Okay, next up, 自从我用过免治马桶后，我再也无法忍受一般马桶了. Oh, yeah, the regular kind are terrible. I don't need that. I want this amazing, fancy Japanese toilet. So, in English, I'd say, ever since I used an electronic toilet seat, I can't stand regular toilet seats. Okay. So, ever since is what we're focused on, right? So, you could use the word since, and that would be okay. Since I used an electronic toilet seat, but using ever since emphasizes that it continued nonstop. So since that time, and you're focused on that it was continuing and it was an important thing. Ever since I used an electronic toilet seat, I can't stand regular toilet seats. So ever since, from that time, going forward. Okay? And I think everybody did pretty well with this. Just the nouns. Like, what are we talking about? So I use the phrase electronic toilet seat. Now, these are not very common in America, so there are a few different ways to say them. There's not really a standard way to say it. So, electronic toilet seat, well, it's a toilet seat with electricity, so it's electronic. And then a lot of people in America will just call it a Japanese toilet or a Japanese toilet seat because the ones that are famous come from Japan, a company called Toto, I think. So a lot of Americans will call it a Japanese toilet or Japanese toilet seat, okay? And then a lot of you use the word washlet. Washlet is the name of the toilet seats made by the company Toto. But I think that's their name. I think only that company can use that word. So the word washlet, it's accurate, but I don't think most people will know what you're talking about if you just say washlet, okay? So you'd have to explain what it is. Oh, an electronic toilet seat. Now, you could also call it an electronic bidet. B-I-D-E-T, bidet. A bidet is a thing that's been around for a long time. I'll type it in the chat. Just the spelling of it. The spelling, B-I-D-E-T, but E-T sounds like A because it's a French word, bidet. A bidet is like kind of like a sink that sprays water up. And that's what these electronic toilet seats do. So they take it used to be you have a toilet in a bidet next to it, but now the electronic toilet seats put the bidet in the toilet seat, right? So you could call it an electronic bidet, okay? Okay, enough about toilet stuff. It's a little bit gross, right? So let's keep on moving. I can't stand regular toilet seats. So I can't stand is a phrase meaning you really don't like it, you've had enough, right? I can't stand it. You could also use the phrase, I can't handle it, meaning I really don't like it. It's not for me. Okay? So I would use can't stand or can't handle. A few people use can't endure. I can't endure regular toilet seats. This word doesn't really work great here. So can't stand, can't handle sounds like you just don't like it. But can't endure, maybe you sit down on the toilet and you have to get up. You can't even sit down. So endure something means like it happens over time and you like let it continue happening. So if you say you can't endure something, it sounds more like you can't even like use these toilets. Can't stand, can't handle just means you don't like it. Can't endure sounds like you actually can't use it. Okay, so I'd say can't stand is best. Okay, and then I can't stand regular toilet seats. And regular is the word we want to use here. You could also say standard, regular or standard, meaning the normal kind. Well, there's another choice. Regular, standard, and normal would all be okay. A few people use the word general. General is not what we want to use here. General means usually means that it affects many different things. So it's not the normal kind. General means that it's like affects more stuff. And it's like not exact. So, well, we can talk more about that later, but general doesn't really work here. If we're talking about a normal kind, we want to use the words regular, standard, or normal. Okay? General is more of a like wide thing to many, it goes to many people. You don't want a general toilet. That sounds like that you share a toilet with people at the same time, maybe. Ugh, okay? I also saw someone write the word no washlet toilet. Well, that's okay. Washlet, no washlet toilet, but it's not like a normal, it's not a common thing to say. So you could say, I can't stand toilet seats without electronic toilet seats or something like that, okay? Okay. Let's keep on moving. So let's move on to lesson 6, conversation 4, part 3, okay? Now this one is focused on asking questions about timing. So Ever is talking about when something might happen, it happened in the past or compared to the past, or will it happen in the future? So now we're asking about time, about how long something takes, right? So our first sentence is Kyle 的一堂线上课程多长? So in English, I would say this as, how long is one lesson in Kyle's online course? Okay? Or, how long does one lesson in Kyle's online course take? Okay? So focusing on one lesson. Now, you could say this if you want to take it from one lesson to talk about the whole course. You could say, how long is Kyle's online course? And that would mean the whole thing. So if we're talking about one lesson, though, you'd say, how long is one lesson in Kyle's online course? Like one part, okay? So how long is the most common way to ask this kind of question? How long is one lesson? So we're asking about the amount of time, the duration, right? You could also use how much time does it take? But with this, we usually need a verb, right? How much time does it take to take one of Kyle's courses or something like that? So how much time does it take to do something? So usually we have a verb there, okay? So I said one lesson in Kyle's online course. The course means the whole thing. So you're in this course and we're in the middle of a long, long course, right? All 10 lessons together is the course. And then if you say online lesson, one lesson is one part, like one focus. So right now we're in lesson 6, right? And then some people use the word class. How long is one class in Kyle's online course? Well, for an online course, we don't really have a class. So the word class doesn't really work super well because class usually means there's a group of people together. And well, yeah. So with online courses, usually we talk about lesson. Okay? So one online course is the whole thing. One lesson of the online course means one part. Okay? So right now, we're still inside of lesson 6, right? So one lesson is actually pretty long for our course. But each lesson has many different little parts, right? Okay. So there weren't many big problems with that. I think everyone did pretty well. So let's take a look at our second sentence, which is 你要用厕所用多久？我很急。Oh, I gotta go. Oh no, sorry. Another toilet bathroom sentence. Hopefully you don't get bothered by that. It's not too gross, but it happens in real life, right? Somebody's using the restroom for too long and you gotta go. I would write this sentence as, how long will you use the bathroom? I need to go. Okay? Another way to say it would be, how long are you going to use the bathroom? I gotta go. Okay? So, how long will you use the bathroom? So, this is kind of following the pattern that we learned in our lesson more closely. How long will you use the bathroom? That would be more for the future, like someone's going into the bathroom. And then the second one is better for if the person's in there already. How long are you going to use the bathroom? Okay? So, two different ways to ask, and they're slightly different. Using will is more future, and then are you going to use means like, sounds like they're continuing to use it, okay? So the second one is actually closer to the Chinese for those of you who care, okay? So how long will you, how long are you going to are very similar, but if you use will, it sounds like you're talking about the future. Are going to could mean now and continuing into the future, okay? And then how much time do you need would be another way to ask this. How much time, well, it would be more. How much more time do you need in the restroom? That would be okay, okay? And then the second part, I said as, I need to go. Or you could say, I gotta go. So in English, we don't really have an adjective that we use very often when we're talking about needing to go to the restroom. You would just say, I need to go, or I gotta go. Or you could say, it's an emergency. That would be okay too. It's an emergency. But again, that's not an adjective. So in Chinese, you say 我很急, which is an adjective, right? Describing how you are. But in English, we would use a verb phrase. I need to go, I gotta go. Or I need to use the bathroom really badly. That's a good one too. I saw that out there. I saw someone write, I'm bursting. Well, you're not bursting. Bursting means you're boom, exploding. You could say, I'm ready to burst, or I'm almost bursting. So you're getting really close. If you're bursting, that means it's already too late, okay? So say, I'm almost going to burst, or I'm about to burst. That would be better. And then a few people wrote, I'm in a rush and I'm in a hurry. Now, I'm in a rush, I'm in a hurry is more about time and going fast. Like, I need to go somewhere and I'm in a rush, or I need to go somewhere, I'm in a hurry. But for using the bathroom, if you say I'm in a hurry, that means you are in a hurry to go somewhere. Like maybe someone's in the bathroom and you want to go to work and you say, I need to use the bathroom, I'm in a rush. That means you want to use the bathroom and then hurry to work. You're going somewhere. But if you want to emphasize that you really need to use the restroom, using I'm in a rush or I'm in a hurry isn't the same meaning. So we want something like I need to go, I gotta go, or I'm ready to burst, something like that. Or I need to use it really badly. Now, one thing that I saw a lot of students use, a lot of people said, I am anxious. Now, this one just doesn't work here. Anxious means you're worried about something. Like, oh, I'm very nervous. And we don't use anxious when we're talking about needing to go to the bathroom. Anxious means you're worried about something. Oh, I'm anxious about work. I'm anxious about asking out that beautiful person. Or I'm anxious about my big test tomorrow. You're worried about it, you're nervous, and it's making you feel stress. So we don't use that for the bathroom, okay? So I need to go, I gotta go. I need to use it badly. I'm about to burst, okay? And let's keep on moving. So Bob 问老板，要多少年我才能升上去当主管? Oh, geez. So Bob asked his boss, how many years will it take for me to be promoted to manager or promoted to supervisor, depending on the company? Okay. Now, this is one where you need to be careful about how you make a quotation in English. So in Chinese, you use a colon, the two dots, dot, dot, and then the brackets, tung, 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 tung. But in English, we don't use those when you have a quote. We use Bob asked his boss, comma, and then quotation marks. You've probably seen me go like this when I'm talking about certain things. That means someone said it. Oh, he said, I really like the food, but maybe he was lying. So we need a comma and then quotation marks, okay? And then the verb ask should be in past tense. So Bob asked his boss. And then the ed, remember that ed can sound like a T. Bob asked his boss, how many years will it take, blah, 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 okay? Bob asked his boss. So it doesn't sound like asked. That's hard to say, asked. You don't have to push out the air. And why do we use asked with an ed? Because it happened once in the past. Asks with an S is present tense, and that would mean he asks him again and again and again. But that's not usually what we're trying to say, okay? And then the focus is, how many years will it take for me to be promoted to manager? So how many years will it take for something? Well, for me, for who? And then to do what? To be promoted, okay? Okay. And we want to use the word will because we're talking about the future. Bob is asking about, okay, going forward in the future, how many years will it take? And we use will because it's in the future. He wants to know what he needs to do. Some people use the word does. How many years does it take to be promoted to manager? Now, if you use the word does, you're asking about, in general, how many years does it usually take to be promoted to manager? Bob's not asking about himself. He's talking about people in general. So if he wants to talk about himself, this situation, you'd say will. If you want to talk about in general, you can use does. How many years does it take for someone to be promoted? Okay. I also saw how many years will I spend? How many years will I spend to become manager is what it was. You would need to have a few more words, like how many years will I need to spend? Because he's trying to ask about what he needs to do, right? So you could say, if it's how many years will it take, that includes the feeling of need inside of it. And then if you want to say, will I spend, you should include the word need to make it clear. How many years will I need to spend to be promoted to manager? But that's getting wordy, kind of. Okay. And then, as I said before, you can say manager or supervisor. Both are okay. Okay. Let's keep on moving. Now, this name is Dane. Dane and Kate. Dane 和 Kate 一年只见一次面。你觉得他们会在一起多久? Oh, that sounds like a tough relationship. This is what we call a long distance relationship. Maybe Dane lives in Germany, Kate lives in South Africa. So they get to meet one time a year. So Dane and Kate only meet once a year. How long do you think they'll be together? Oh, this poor couple. That sounds tough. They only meet once a year. Okay? So we can put the word only before the verb. So you can say only meet once a year. You could also put only after the verb. Dane and Kate meet only once a year. That both are okay. I prefer putting only before the verb. Dane and Kate only meet once a year. Okay? And then, how long do you think they'll be together? So, asking this kind of question, we want to put how long at the beginning. How long do you think they will be together? Okay? So, a lot of you wrote that, do you think how long they will be together? Well, you have to remember, what is the focus of the question? Well, we want to begin with the focus of the question. The most important part of the question is how long, right? The question is not, do you think, blah, blah, blah. The question is how long, right? That's the most important thing here. So how long do you think they'll be together? Okay? So we always put how long at the beginning of our sentence. And then I also saw, how long do you think their relationship will last? Very good. That's another great way to write this sentence. How long do you think their relationship will last? So their relationship is them being together, and lasting means it stays good. They stay together. Okay? So you could write it either way. Okay. And moving on to our next part, which is Lesson 6, Conversation 4, Part 4. This time, we're taking a look at the word recently and the word lately. Now, recently is used to talk about one thing that happened in the past, or like how you're feeling recently, right? And then lately is usually used for things that happen again and again in the past leading up till now, okay? And so our first sentence is, 他最近换了新发型，看起来神清气爽. Okay, hopefully I got that right. And in English, I would write this as, he changed his hairstyle recently. He looks full of life. We learned full of life last lesson? Or no. Conversation 1, I think. This apartment is full of life. Wow. A cockroach riding a rat. Wow. It's full of life. So good. Oh. Okay. So he changed his hairstyle recently. So you could also say he got a new haircut. But changing hairstyle and getting a new haircut is kind of different. Well, for me, I get a new haircut every 6 weeks, about. But do I change my hairstyle? No. Every time I get a new haircut, I get it cut the same way. I'm kind of stubborn like that. I don't want to change anything crazy. So getting a new haircut means snip, 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 but that's not a big change. It just makes it shorter. But if you say he changed his hairstyle recently, maybe go from like a normal haircut to zoom, shaved bald. Maybe you'd like that. Should I go bald next time? Maybe lesson 7 I can be bald, or a mohawk. Zoom. What do you think? Okay, so he changed his hairstyle. He went from one hairstyle to something very different. Oh, wow, maybe he had long hair on his face, but now he cut it short and he looks good. He looks full of life. Wow. Or you could say he looks energetic. Wow. Okay? Remember, it should be he looks energetic. We don't need the word like. So I saw a couple of people write, he looks like energetic. But we use like if we're comparing him to something. He looks like Brad Pitt, or he looks like the king of whatever. Okay? So you look like someone or like something, but if we use an adjective like full of life or energetic, don't need the word like. He looks energetic. Okay? And then this is full of life, energetic. He feels like he's a new person, right? A lot of you wrote the word refreshed. So he looks refreshed. Usually we don't use refreshed in this way. Refreshed is often used on a short term. Maybe like he's feeling tired and then he drinks a cup of coffee and now he's feeling refreshed. Or maybe you're really thirsty and you drink some water and you feel refreshed. You feel better. You feel more comfortable. But if it's a big change, refreshed is more of like your health, usually for your health. I feel refreshed because I drank a glass of water, or I feel refreshed because I ate some oranges and it gave me some energy. Okay? And then remember, refreshed describes a person's feeling. So you could say someone looks refreshed if they drink some water and they feel better. So that's ED describes someone's feeling. Now, refreshing, or if you have an ing verb, it means that thing does it to you. So I saw a few people write, he looks refreshing. No, what that means is maybe you see him and he's so handsome, he makes you feel better. Oh, I feel energetic and better. So you see him and it makes you less thirsty. Huh, okay. Maybe you have some special things going on in your head. Okay, leave him alone. Okay, next up, sentence number 2. 你可以来这个网站看最新发生的国际大事. Okay, so you can visit this website to see the most recently occurring international news. Well, there's a simpler way to say this, right? You could say, you can visit this website to see the latest news. That would be okay too. But if we want to use the word recently like we had in our lesson, the most recently occurring international news, okay? You could also say the most recent international news if you don't want the ly, okay? So recent can be an adjective, recent international news. Recently is an adverb, so it describes something that happened. So recently occurring international news. Occurring meaning it happened. And occurring is a little more formal than happening. So when we're talking about the news, we usually use the word occurring rather than happening, okay? Now, I use the words you can because you can. You're able to. It's okay. I saw a few people use you could visit this website. Could meaning like maybe you're not so sure about it. Maybe you're giving them a choice, but maybe they don't want to. So if you use could, it sounds like you're a little bit less sure of it. Saying you can, it's more sure, and it's giving someone a suggestion. And for a website, the verb we use is often visit. You can visit this website, okay? We don't really use the word come. You can come to this website. Well, that wouldn't be me telling you. That would be if the website said it itself. The website says, you can come to this website. Something like that. But usually when we're talking, we'd say, you can visit this website or you can go to this website. Keep it simple, okay? To see the most recently occurring international news or the most recent international news, I saw the most recently happened international news. And it's close, but it sounds a little bit funny. So to describe the news, we would say the news is occurring or happening with an ing. And for news, we keep it a little formal, so we use occurring more often than happening for news, okay? And I would use the phrase international news to talk about anything that happens around the world. So I saw someone use international issues, which is not bad. You can visit this website to see the most recently occurring international issues. But generally, we'll just use the word news to get the same idea, because these issues are part of the news, okay? And let's keep on moving. The next one is about the app Line. So, 我们知道最近都很常在 Line 上面聊天，但他忽然就消失了。Poof! Where did he go? So imagine there was this person and he faded away. What kind of thing fades away and disappears? Well, a ghost. So we use the word ghost as a verb now. This is a pretty new slang word, the word ghost. So we'll talk about it in a second. So the sentence, I would say, we'd been talking online a lot lately, but he suddenly ghosted me. So ghost is a verb here. You could also say, we'd been talking online a lot lately, but he suddenly disappeared. So you could say disappeared, which is correct, but now when talking about online dating or chatting with friends and stuff, we often use the word ghost as a verb, okay? Did you know that ghost can be a verb? So to ghost someone, usually ghost is followed by who it happened to. So he suddenly ghosted me, okay? To ghost someone means that you're talking to them and then you decide you don't want to talk to them again. You don't tell them you don't want to talk to them. You don't block them. You just suddenly stop answering. You go silent. You turn into a ghost. It's like you disappeared. So in English, we use this phrase when someone doesn't break up with you, doesn't dump you, doesn't say, please leave me alone. They just suddenly stop answering. And it's a very common thing for people to do. It's not very nice. It would be better to be direct and say, hey, sorry, you're not the right person for me. I don't think we should continue talking or being friends. But that's a hard thing for a lot of people to say. So instead, people will just ghost someone. They say, oh, I don't want to have to tell them goodbye or tell them that I don't like them. I'll just stop talking to them. Which kind of feels worse if it happens to you, right? Have you ever been ghosted? Maybe you've tried using Tinder or other online dating and someone ghosts you. Ooh, it's not a good feeling, right? So, oh well. But everyone, we can be better. Don't ghost someone. Just tell them the truth. Say, hey, you seem nice, but I don't know if this is going to work out. Okay? Actually, we'll talk more about stuff like that in our next lesson about some heartbreak. Oh no, breaking up and stuff like that. You'll find out in lesson 7. Okay, so we'd been talking online a lot lately, but he suddenly ghosted me. So the first part, I used past perfect tense. We had been talking online. Now, why do we use past perfect? Well, comparing two things that happened in the past. We'd been talking online. That tells you this happened first. And then he ghosted me. So one before the other. Two things in the past, but had been talking tells you that that happened first, okay? Now, I use the word talking. You could also use the word chatting. Talking and chatting, basically the same. Chatting sounds a little bit more for fun, which is totally fine if you're chatting with someone online. Okay? And then remember, Line is an app. It's a messaging app. So it should be on space line. So online. If you put it together, online, that means on the internet. So it could be true. If you say online, one word, that could be through Facebook, it could be Line, WhatsApp, WeChat, Google Hangouts, Skype, whatever you use. All of that's online. But if you want to mean the app, you'd say online. Okay? So we'd been talking online a lot lately. So there's a little bit of a stress difference. We'd been talking online, or we'd been talking online. Sounds very similar, but the second one means the app. Okay? And then he ghosted me. Like I said before, to ghost someone means you're talking to them and then poof, you suddenly stop talking to them without saying why or what happened. So maybe the person texting you is saying like, oh yeah, the baseball game was really cool. And that's the last message ever. You think they disappeared. Okay? So you can say he disappeared. You could say he ghosted me. I saw a few people say he just gone, but gone is not a verb. So you could say he just went away, or he just became gone. Gone is an adjective describing someone. So we need a verb there. So he disappeared, or he stopped responding, something like that. Okay? Okay. And next up, Timmy 最近晚上一直睡不好，所以跑出黑眼圈。Oh, poor Timmy. This kid, he's always causing trouble. I bet you're imagining this kid Timmy as a demon child, the worst kind of monster kid in the world. Poor Timmy. Timmy hasn't been able to sleep well lately. So he has circles under his eyes. Oh, I'm so tired. So Timmy hasn't been able to sleep well lately. Okay, so some of you said he has been sleeping lightly, or he has been sleeping not well, something like that. But usually we'll put the negative, move it to the verb. He has not been able to sleep well lately. So usually we think about sleeping well is what we want, and you don't get it. So he hasn't been able to sleep well lately. Okay, and lately means it's happening again and again from then till now. So past perfect tense. Okay, he hasn't been sleeping well lately. Now, someone said he has slept lightly lately. Now, if you don't sleep well, maybe you don't get a good sleep. But sleeping lightly, that means that you wake up easily. The meaning is a little bit different. If someone is a light sleeper, they sleep and maybe it's okay, but if there's a sound, they wake up really quickly. So sleeping lightly is a bit of a different meaning. So we want he doesn't sleep well, okay? And then some of you wrote that Timmy has had insomnia. That's okay, but insomnia is more serious. It sounds like he just can't sleep. He really can't sleep. So not sleeping well means he's not sleeping well. But having insomnia sounds like it's really bad. He can't sleep at all. Maybe he's awake all night long. So insomnia sounds more serious. Okay? And then, so he hasn't been able to sleep well lately. You could also use the word recently, right? Lately and recently are both okay, but lately suggests that it happens again and again. So he has circles under his eyes. You could also say he has dark circles under his eyes. So usually we talk about these as circles under your eyes or rings under your eyes. That would be okay too. I saw people say shadows around his eyes. But if we're talking about someone being sleepy or tired, we usually say circles or rings, not shadows. Okay? And in Chinese, it says 跑出黑眼圈. But in English, we would not use something like run. In Chinese, you have the word run, or to mean it came out. But in English, remember, we're describing what he has. Like if it's a problem, like a sickness or something wrong with his body, we often use has. He has dark circles around his eyes, okay? Or under his eyes. Both are okay. Next, so lesson 6, conversation 4, part 5. So here we have our dialogue, and you decide, oh, I really like this apartment. I'm going to imagine it decorated with all the stuff I want. Oh, here's a question. How about gets? So, Gene, I think you're talking about he gets dark circles under his eyes. Is that right? If you say he gets circles under his eyes, or he gets dark circles under his eyes, using the word gets, remember gets is in present perfect tense, and gets means it happens to him. And gets, if you use gets like that, it means it happens again and again and again. So present simple tense, like the word gets, means it's a thing that happens again and again. Has is also present simple, but has means he has it now. We're talking about the truth of what he has. Gets means it happens to him. Like it's the difference between Bob is rich versus Bob gets rich. Is rich means it's the truth, it's what's true about him. Bob is rich. Bob gets rich focuses on him becoming rich. And using present simple for gets means it happens to him and it happens again and again. So here, Timmy has circles under his eyes. We're describing what's true about him now. But if you say Timmy gets circles under his eyes, that is talking about it happens every day or each time. So it depends what you're trying to say. I think of this as I'm looking at Timmy now and I'm describing him. Oh, recently he hasn't slept well, so now he has dark circles under his eyes. It depends what you're talking about. Are you talking about now, or does it keep happening again and again? Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Oh, Sarah has been suffering from insomnia lately. Oh, that sounds so serious. So like I said, suffering from insomnia sounds really bad. I hope it's not that bad. Maybe you want to say, I haven't been sleeping well lately, or I haven't been sleeping well recently. That's also bad, but suffering from insomnia sounds pretty serious. So good luck, Sarah. Maybe go to bed early tonight, okay? We're almost there. We're almost finished, and I'll let you go get some sleep, okay? Okay, next up, Lesson 6, Conversation 4, Part 5. Our dialogue with Bob. Bob is asking you, okay, I'll bite. Tell me what you want to put in your apartment. And you say, oh, I want a bowling alley. I want VR over there. And then I want a ping pong table, basketball court, and the Mona Lisa. And Bob thinks you're an idiot. You're too ridiculous, right? Okay. And then rewind again. So back to, we'd been talking online a lot lately. The question is, for the third sentence, can I say, we chatted online a lot until recently? Yes, that would be okay. Because if you use the past tense, which you did, we chatted online, it means it's in the past and it's over, right? Because he ghosted you or he disappeared, that means you're not chatting anymore. So you can put it in the past simple tense and say, we chatted online a lot until recently. So in the past, and then up till recently, but then it's still in the past, right? And it's finished, it's back there in the past. So yeah, that's fine too. We chatted a lot, or we chatted online a lot until recently. And then he suddenly disappeared, or then he ghosted me. Oh, so sad. Okay, let's move to part 5. Okay, so wrapping everything together, we have ever, we have some words from our dialogue, and we have recently, and we have ever again. Okay, first up is 自从珍妮和 Bob 交往后，他就一直在幻想举办婚礼。So Jenny is dreaming. She's a dreamer. Ever since Jenny started dating Bob, she's been constantly dreaming about their wedding. Okay, so one thing here, which wasn't as big of a issue as I expected, was the first part is ever since Jenny started dating Bob. The reason I do that is because we put Jenny as our subject. Because in the second part, we start with she. She's been constantly dreaming about their wedding. So on both sides of the sentence, we want Jenny as the subject. In Chinese, you have Jenny and Bob as the subject. And then she is the subject in the second part. So in Chinese, it looks like ever since Jenny and Bob started dating, she's been constantly dreaming about their wedding. But in English, that feels weird because in English, it says, if you say ever since Jenny and Bob started dating, you expect the second part to start with they. So since Jenny and Bob, blah, 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 they, blah, blah, blah. But we want to focus on just Jenny. So ever since Jenny started dating Bob, make Bob the object of the sentence, okay? She's been constantly dreaming about their wedding. Oh, I'm punching things. Okay, so ever since is what we use to say it started then and continued. And we use ever to emphasize that it never stopped, okay? You could use since, but ever since makes it stronger, showing that it continued and didn't stop. So I said ever since Jenny started dating Bob. Then you could also say ever since she started seeing Bob, or ever since Jenny got together with Bob, okay? But remember, started seeing Bob, but you do not say seeing with Bob. You see someone, you don't see with someone, okay? And then we want to use got together, not are together. Are together means they are together, but we're talking about the beginning when they started. If we use ever since, we need something that happened. So ever since Jenny got together with Bob. If you use are together, that's a state. That's how they are. But you can't connect that with ever since. Ever since starts with one thing happening, okay? And then she's been constantly dreaming about their wedding. So here the word dreaming is best. She's thinking about their wedding, dreaming about the future, dreaming about their wedding. Now, some people use the word fantasy or fantasies. Now, fantasy, you're close. Fantasy is a noun. Fantasy is a noun meaning like a story with magic or kind of like a dream. Fantasy is like a dream, but even more crazy and magical, okay? So if you know the story Lord of the Rings, those are fantasy. So if you use just the word fantasy, it doesn't work here because that's a noun. She's been fantasy about, no. You have to change fantasy to a verb, which is fantasizing. I'll type it in the chat. Fantasize, or fantasizing. Now this word is what you could use here, fantasizing. She's been constantly fantasizing about their wedding. So it's like dreaming, but even a little more wild and crazy, okay? And then you could also say dreaming about their wedding, dreaming about having a wedding, dreaming about getting married. All of these are okay. So not any big problems with that. Just don't say fantasy, use fantasize. Fantasy is the kind of story, okay? Okay. Next up, sentence 2. 我觉得他有点想太远，他需要实际一点。Okay, so this is using one phrase we learned from our dialogue and one vocab word we learned. So I think she's kind of getting ahead of herself. She needs to be more realistic. Okay, so getting ahead of yourself means you're thinking too far in the future, right? You're thinking too far ahead, okay? So you could say something like that. She's thinking too far ahead, but you want to add that word ahead. Or she's thinking too far into the future, something like that. But she's getting ahead of herself, meaning, she's making decisions too early. She and Bob only started dating a month ago. She's already thinking about the wedding. Maybe it's too soon, okay? So, getting ahead of herself, thinking too far ahead, but not just think too far. And then I also saw a few people use she's thinking too much. Now, thinking too much is a phrase in Chinese, like 想太多, but in English, it's not very common. People will understand what you mean, but it's not a very common phrase to say thinks too much, okay? So she's getting ahead of herself, or she's thinking too far into the future, okay? Can we use the word fantasy? I have a fantasy on, I have a fantasy for, I have this fantasy. The sentences you're thinking of are fantasize about something. So I'm fantasizing about being the first man to land on Mars. Oh, dreaming about something crazy. This girl is fantasizing about that actor, something like that. So yeah, you can use the word you fantasize about something, and that's pretty common. To have a fantasy, I would not recommend it. I can't think of a situation where I would say I have a fantasy. Usually we'd say something is a fantasy, like that movie is a fantasy, meaning the kind of movie. I'll have to look up some other uses for fantasy like that, but I don't think people often use it that way. I'll get back to you about it later, okay? So you can use fantasize as the verb for that kind of idea. Okay, so where are we? So we're talking about Jenny fantasizing, dreaming, and she needs to be more realistic, okay? You could also say she needs to be more practical. And then I saw someone use a good phrase, which is she needs to get real. So get real is kind of like a slang phrase, meaning like be more realistic. Get real, okay? That works too. Okay. Next up is, oh, we're running kind of long. So next up is 他最近一直逼 Bob 陪他去 IKEA 逛家具. So for this, I put recently at the beginning. Keep it separate. Keeping it at the beginning makes it so you can make that the focus. Recently, she keeps forcing Bob to go furniture shopping at IKEA with her. Okay. So she keeps forcing Bob to go furniture shopping at IKEA with her. So forcing means she's pushing him really, really hard. So you could say she keeps asking Bob, and that would be okay, but if you want to make it really strong, you can use forcing. She keeps forcing Bob to go with her. Okay? And I use the word keeps to mean again and again and again. So here we have 一直, and I would use the word keeps to show that it keeps on happening. It happens again and again, maybe every weekend. So she keeps forcing Bob to go furniture shopping with her. Okay? I also saw people use been forcing. She has been forcing Bob to go blah, 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 blah. And that's okay too. Present perfect works here well, starts in the past, continues to now, and shows that it's been happening more than once. She has been forcing Bob to go. Okay? And then furniture shopping. So shopping is the activity. To describe the shopping, we put furniture in front. Furniture shopping. Just like we have clothes shopping. Okay? So I saw people say shopping furniture. That doesn't work. You could say furniture shopping, or you could say shopping for furniture. Okay? But because furniture shopping is common, you can use it as an adjective. Furniture shopping. Okay? So no big problems there. I think most people got it. And then our final sentence, 如果 Bob 跟他求婚的话，他一定会毫不犹豫就答应. So, if Bob ever proposes to her, she'll accept at the drop of a hat. At the drop of a hat means super quick, right away, right? So, if Bob ever is the focus for this, you could say if Bob proposes to her. And that sounds like you think it might happen, okay? But if you are not sure and you're talking about someday in the future, I don't know if it will happen, but maybe sometime in the future, we can add the word ever. If Bob ever proposes to her, she'll accept at the drop of a hat. Okay, so the first part, if Bob ever proposes to her, make sure it's proposes to her, okay? You could also say, if Bob ever asks her to marry him, that would be okay. But you can use proposes, that's fine. And then the second part, she'll accept at the drop of a hat. So she will accept. And accept is the same as she will say yes. So you could say she'll say yes at the drop of a hat. That's okay too. Okay? But for a proposal, someone asking you to marry them, we usually use the verb accept or say yes. Both of those are okay. Any other verb is not as common. So some people said she'll agree. Usually we don't use agree for a proposal. Agree means maybe someone wants you to do something with them. But proposal, they're asking to take your hand in marriage. And so the idea of them taking your hand and you accept that, you're saying it's okay. I mean, accept and agree are similar, but just remember, propose usually goes with accept or say yes. And then a few people use the word promise. Promise is a little bit further away. We wouldn't use promise in this situation. So some people said, she will promise right away or something like that. But we don't use promise in that way. Promise means you say you will do something for sure. But a proposal or asking someone to marry you is asking for something. And so because they're asking, you accept that offer, right? You can think of it like accepting an offer, but we don't promise an offer. We don't promise if someone asks you something. So accept or say yes are the best verbs for a proposal. Okay, and then she'll accept at the drop of a hat. At the drop of the hat means right away, and she'll be excited. Yeah, let's do it. So at the drop of a hat suggests that she really wants to do it, okay? So you could say without hesitation or without hesitating. That would be very similar, meaning she doesn't stop and pause before saying yes. She'll say it right away. So to hesitate or hesitation is the feeling of stopping to worry about something. And you don't want any hesitation, so without hesitation means right away, okay? I saw a few people say she'll accept without thinking. Now, it's close to the same meaning, but it's not great for this, not perfect. Without thinking sounds like it's actually, maybe it's a bad idea, maybe it's a mistake. Without hesitation means she's excited to do it. At the drop of a hat means right away, she wants to do it. But if you say without thinking, that suggests that she didn't really make a good decision. She didn't take the time to think, is this a good idea or not? So without thinking, it's a similar meaning, but it doesn't work here perfectly. So I would say if Bob ever proposes to her, she'll accept at the drop of a hat. Oh, Bob is such a nice guy. He makes burritos for her. He works at the night market for her every day. He is learning how to dance the robot. Oh, Bob, he sounds like a great guy, right? So what if you met Bob and you went on a date with Bob? How would things go with you? And then what if Bob did something weird? What if Bob reached over and took a bite of your food? How would you react to that? So here we're pretty much done with lesson 6 today. Moving forward, so on October 8th, 2 weeks from now, we will have our first stream about lesson 7. And we'll talk about going on a date. So see some different perspective on how to react to a date. Imagine your date takes a bite of your food without asking you. How do you react to that? And does that change how things go? Well, I guess you'll have to find out. So next time we'll have lesson 7, conversation 1 on October 8th. And you'll get to see what happens if you're really positive. You're so positive. And through lesson 7, we're going to start talking about a concept that's very common in America. That in America, everybody knows this idea. It's called the 5 stages of grief. Now, it sounds like something that you might study at school, but many people know about this and it's a very common thing. If something bad happens in your life, it could be getting dumped. Maybe you break up with someone, or something bad happens, you get really sick, or maybe someone passes away. Anytime something bad happens, we all go through the 5 stages of grief, where you get sad, you get angry, and then eventually you move on, you're okay. So in lesson 7, we'll talk about the 5 stages of grief, and each of the personalities will deal with some different stages of grief, like being, oh, it didn't happen, or angry about it, or oh, I'm sad, or it'll be okay, I'll move on. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. If you have any other questions about our homework this time, or any questions about lesson 6 at all, please feel free to leave a message. And feel free to leave questions and comments and any of your ideas. I'll try to post some stuff in our group this week or over the next 2 weeks to try to get you guys communicating and practicing your English. I know you practice speaking in our app, but I want you guys to practice typing in our group, okay? So don't be shy. If you make a mistake, it's okay. I make mistakes too, okay? So let's wrap up here. And I will stick around for a couple more minutes. So if you'd like to chat with me, send a message to Kyle Moai, as usual. And I'd love to hear from you. So if you're free for a few minutes, we can chat. Give me a shout, say hello. And then happy Moon Festival, happy Mid-Autumn Festival. Have a great night. and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. If you do anything fun on the long weekend, please let me know, okay? So, good night, Jean. Good night, Sarah. Good night, everyone else who's here. Sarah would like to know more about the 5 stages of grief. You'll find out in Lesson 7, Conversation 1, Part 5 is when I talk about it for the first time, okay? So I'll send a link to a Wikipedia page about the 5 stages of grief too, if you want to read about it now. So we'll talk more about that in Lesson 7, okay? So have a good night. Have a great long weekend. I appreciate you joining me, and thank you so much for joining in the chat. I love hearing from you guys. So I'll see you in 2 weeks, and happy Mid-Autumn Festival, okay? Have a good night.